You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson, and I'm here now talking about Saturn in the second house. This is part of the Saturn series, where I look at the impact that Saturn has on your birth chart, or indeed on your life as it transits through all the different houses. And this episode is about the second house. So Saturn in the second house. So sit back, relax, and hopefully, if this is all going on for you right now, we can help you. I can help you understand the Saturn energy in the second house a little bit more clearly. So first of all, Saturn energy is to do with, I think, paternalism. It can definitely represent our dad in our charts. And likewise, it represents how we father ourselves, how we look after ourselves, how we adult. You know, how adult are we? How do we know how to look after ourselves? And it looks at rules, regulations, structures and routines. It also looks at, I guess, our ordinariness at some level. You know, how, and also how comfortable we are to assume control from our unique positions. So it's quite a heavy hitter, and Saturn, as it moves around and impacts our lives and works with other planetary energies, it can really create some shakes and some frustrations for people. So Saturn in the second house then. The second house is about our values, and in a lot of astrology books, and you'll hear lots of astrologers talking about the second house as the place of money. I agree that it's definitely a place of money. I prefer to look at it from a perspective of values, because that also includes our values about ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-belief, and our generosity towards our resources. So I look at it predominantly as a place of our resources. So if you're born with Saturn in the second house, the chances are you have a slightly more sober relationship to your resources than most people. It would make you very careful of the things that you have and look after, and the things that you own. Ownership's very important to you. So you will be the kind of person that is quite aspirational, probably, in the things that they'd like to own and interact with resource-wise, getting the best of things. And you'll be very responsible with how you resource things as well. So things have to really, really work for you. In some astrology circles, you might hear people say, oh, Saturn in the second house, that's really difficult. You're not going to earn much money, because Saturn can also represent our limitations and our lack. And of course, when that's moved and mixed and blended with the energies of resources and money and finance and work, it could show that it's an area of improvement for you, that, you know, you perceive lack when they're, you know, and you feel like you're in a position of lack, and that is also true. So there's kind of two sides to every coin. Funny, a coin, money analogy in the money house. But Saturn in its highest expression can show how we can create a structure and look after our resources and be kind of paternalistic about them. Or it can show where we have a real lack of energy about our resources. And it can also show mean-spiritedness as well, because you know, people with a very strong Saturn in the second house, it's not unknown for people to hoard the things that they have. They guard them, they take such good care of them that they aren't so comfortable with sharing them there, because the more we hoard and the more we guard things, the less likely we are to receive new things. Universally, I think the Saturn message is about learning from misfortune and learning from our sense of limitation. And so the message really is, if you want more, you need to build more, or you need to create the structures to allow more. So it's a real strong learning here with Saturn in the second house to not fear that we're not going to have enough, but think, okay, what is it that I would like in my life, and what structures might I need to be able to achieve that. And when you can be in a positive Saturn mindset with a Saturn in the second house, then it's entirely possible that you can work very single-mindedly on a goal-by-goal level to achieve a certain level of work expertise or a certain stature or status within your job or within the company that you work for, so that you can have the control over your finances, which is ultimately what you'd like. Now, from a self-esteem perspective, again, it's an interesting call, because I guess on the most negative expression of Saturn and self-esteem is that we feel a total lack of self-worth. And just, I have seen it reflected in some people's charts that they just absolutely can't see any value in themselves at all, and don't feel very valued by other people, feel very undervalued and feel worthless, and really translate their lives in those terms. In particular, where Saturn is in a harsh relationship to other planets, or where it's not in a very positive astrological pattern in the birth chart, that's definitely the case. Where Saturn is in a harsh place to do with self-worth, then what you might find is that people become recluses and cut off from people, or actually put other people down and are very judgmental, therefore not being open to meeting new people. So if there was an index on openness, people with Saturn in the second house would probably have quite a low level of openness to other people and to what's different. So there can be that influence of shutting other people out because you don't feel very valuable in yourself, and I guess you don't want that hurt to keep repeating and having people bear out to you the truth of the fact that they're not very valuable. Of course, that's all based on our own perceptions and our own judgments and blame and etc., and we project it onto ourselves. Now, where Saturn is in quite positive relationships to the second house, then we have somebody who actively works on creating a good sense of self-esteem and works at improving their value in life and improving on what people think they are. So we have people who are status seeking and also want to have a very good, strong, responsible reputation within their families and within their friendships. So they're people that really work hard, long and hard, to be seen as responsible and emotionally responsible. They probably have quite well-defined boundaries, but not boundaries that throw everybody out. So they're boundaries that allow benefits for people who behave well. So there's probably a whole reward system in place. But somebody with a very strong and positive second house Saturn are probably deeply thoughtful about not only the resources that they have coming into them in their life, but also what they're giving back out and how they can share their best attributes whilst maintaining a good level of status and feelings of worth. So I'm hoping that that's quite useful for those people who are born with Saturn in the second house. Now, if Saturn is about to transit through your second house, and what I mean by that is that Saturn is always on, all the planets are on the move all the time, and they don't stop moving after, the moment you were born. That snapshot isn't a static thing. They carry on moving. But when Saturn is gone through the first house, is about to enter into the second house, then there's learning to be had to do with values. And it's your time to, if you know it's coming, like a year ahead, you might want to start saving some cash, because it usually represents a time when funds suddenly disappear or become tighter. And our resources all just seem a little bit more impossible. And I guess for people that are prepared for it and have a nest egg, it's not so tragic. But for people who live on a month-by-month basis, which I imagine includes most of us, then it can be quite shocking. And it doesn't necessarily have to just be about our own funds. For instance, Saturn recently went through my second house, and pretty much, as it was going through my second house, it coincided with a time when my husband was made redundant, and our home was actually in his place of work. We actually lived where he worked, which sounds unusual, but was really quite good for us. We really enjoyed what that brought us at a family level. So it was, for me, my resources, the resources that I knew. It wasn't so much that my husband's money was about to be stopped, although obviously that's quite an important thing in a marital home, is the available funds coming into you. But it was the actual resources. Our lifestyle was curtailed quite quickly within a matter of months. We went through a hardship that we couldn't really see coming. However, if we'd been slightly different people and we had a nest egg here and we already owned a house or something like that, then it would have been less traumatic. That's what I'm trying to bring about to you in mentioning this. Is it's a time when our resources get tighter naturally, and when we need to think about how we can use our resources a bit smarter. So, I mean, we're quite smart with the way we use it. We do a lot of recycling and sharing of resources and things like that. So, thankfully, because we were quite strong in sharing, and we had a strong community-led ethos within our own family, we were supported quite a bit by our community, not financially, but with resources and ideas, and things flowed. So it's really important to think before Saturn goes into your second house. What you need to think is, what resources do I have? And it doesn't have to just be financial. It could be social capital. So what capital do I have? Financial, social, spiritual, friendship capital. All those different things that you've got and you can count on. You want to build those up before Saturn goes in the second house, trust me. And where you've built sufficient, where you've banked sufficient levels of capital, in whatever medium they are, it could even be health capital, then you'll be rewarded and supported by those savings. But it really gets you to look at yourself. So I guess in a similar way that our resources were changed, and we needed to formulate a new structure for ourselves, or for myself, it was going through my second house. At the same time, we also need to consider how we judge ourselves through the values, because my ideas on self-valuing and my how effective was I, and how useful was I, all those kinds of questions come up during those times. So the second house transit is important. It's also a time when we might consider strengthening our career, because the second house is to do with work and how we value ourselves, or how we put a value on our efforts. So it's often a time when people are thinking about changing their careers, or strengthening their careers, or going for a new job during that time. And again, the more preparation you do, preparation's the key word of Saturn. Every time you prepare for something, you'll tend to get a much better outcome. So, where you're networking with the right types of people and you've made those connections, then things tend to go a lot smoother. As ever, when you're talking about transiting Saturn, it's important to recognise where Saturn's about to go after it's been in the second house, because the second house leads to a third house, and the third house is about communication and becoming part of the community and being more active in the community. So, from a second house perspective, you want to be building your Saturn resources and building your life and building your career and boosting your thoughts about your own self-worth, so that as Saturn goes into your third house of community and day-to-day learning and sibling interactions and interactions with people nearby, your neighbours and things like that. It's quite a busy sign. The third house is a busy house. As Saturn goes in there, it tends to quieten things down, and it tends to put a strain on the relationships around you in the community. So as you're going through your second house Saturn, featuring the insatiable urge to create status for yourself, you want to pay a bit of attention to where Saturn's going next, which is into your community, and make sure that you've already got some great community capital so that when Saturn goes there, you're already primed to receive the rewards of that transit and not the awfulness of it. Anyway, hope that's been useful. That's the second house Saturn. If there's any questions at all, then please do give me a shout. You can reach me at louisa@feelgoodastrology.com, or through any different mode of social media that you have seen me on. Anyway, take care for now, and stay in touch.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.